Hey guys, welcome to Comfy Cozy Up. So today I'm going to be talking about books I read in September. I read 6 books. 4 of them is from the short list for the Man Booker. And so I had some historical fiction in there, 1 romance. And for the most part, I had a good reading month. I read some books that are definitely memorable, that potentially might be on my top 10 for the year. And it's just that kind of reading month that you can appreciate. So we're going to start with the first book, which is called What Passes as Love. And this is a book that I enjoyed. I enjoyed because the author had a creative way of telling the story that wasn't so daunting and draining emotionally, because sometimes when you read books that are historically in the past of in slavery days, you tend to want to not read those because sometimes there's just so much energy that goes into it. This didn't do that. I think she did it in a way where you felt the emotion of the character. You were rooting for the character, and she made you just more of an imagine certain things and not necessarily telling of it. You just know that happened or that happened, that kind of deal. So I love this in terms of talking about passing in a way that it's not necessarily stripping yourself of who you are, but more so of escaping the harsh reality of what it means to be a slave. And in this case, you have a young woman who at 16 was now in the house of her slave master, who happens to be her father, with other people who don't treat her well. And something happened where she just accidentally got into a circumstance with 2 brothers that one fell for her, and she is now in their home, in living their life and living as a white woman because she passes as one. And while she's there, past didn't stay in the past, because a young man who she grew up with was believed to have helped her escape, which he had nothing to do with it, but sold off to the family that she's now living with. And so you can imagine how that works, because they were emotionally connected, and that love that they have for each other now becomes more complicated because of her quest to protect him, to make sure he's okay. And so that happened in this. There's a bit of things that happened towards the end that you were rooting for, but then the book kind of leave you wanting more. There are certain things about this book that I wanted more of, that I didn't quite get, but I wanted. So that's where this comes in for me. Now, I would say this book made me think of the new controversy about another book as far as passing, by Nella Lawson. Now, you know that book is going to be a movie, and they show the actress in this book, in the movie, that's playing a role. And as a black person, you could automatically see one of them striking features that will say, no, you're not. And I thought about this book because in this book, it shows you in terms of when she is with these slaves, they are automatically can look at her, several of them, and was able to tell that she was not white, that she has Negro blood. That's the best way to put it. But you know, the one drop. So you see that in this, and you see how as a black person, when you see someone passing, you can tell, versus a white person might not be able to tell. So that whole controversy is actually interesting because it shows up in this. Because she was able to be looked at as she's not passing. Get me? So I would say definitely read this. I enjoyed it. I want more, and especially since it is based on a it was inspired by an actual real person, a real passing person. So I wanted more. That's the only problem I had in this book. I just wanted more, and that's a good thing to have when you read a book like this. Like, if you wanted more, you're like, oh yeah, I wanted more. And then A Passage North. Now, this book is on the Booker, and I understood why it made the 6th list. It has an interesting writing style that was hard for me to get into at first. I didn't get the gist of it, and then when you finally get moments where you understand it, it then becomes a little bit more, oh, that's why that is that way, that kind of deal. This is really about the after effects of war, of loss, of matters of the heart and regrets, and observation of people. Because in this you have a woman who was the caretaker for a young man's grandmother, and something happened where she passed away, and he is venturing out to which is, passage north, to our funeral, to be a representation from the family at the funeral. And you are in his mind where it's like there's bits and pieces of talking about the woman, and you're learning about her in a way that aha moment, because there were things that should have been people should have saw but didn't see, because of she's grieving. She lost her child, and a child that she couldn't even bury, and how that grief, even though she's in a household taking care of an elderly woman, how that grief is still there, how that grief is showing up in ways that you didn't see at first, but now that you're thinking about it, you see it. That's how the story is come off. But then the main character, you see his issue of how he's dealing with all that has happened to him. His loss of a woman that he loved, and that complicated relationship. You've seen all of this in the eyes of that main character. For the most part, it's a depressing book. That's the best way to put it. It's a depressing book. It's just the just wallow in grief and loss and disappointments and all this other stuff in this book. It's just it was a bit. Didn't enjoy it as much, but I think it had these moments in there that makes you think and make you appreciate the story in how it's being told. So that's where I get from this. Didn't like it. No one is talking about this, and all I kept thinking, no one should be talking about it. I did a review. And I kept laughing at the review because it's just, that's how much this story has this moment. Now, there is a topic that's talked about in this that I thought was very relevant and very much an important topic. But everything else in this book just felt like the author was doing too much, didn't get it, was corny at times. I don't understand how it got in a 6. I don't. And so it didn't do it for me. It's just, this is definitely the bottom of the barrel for me on the list. And it just didn't do it for me. But I get the topic I get the whole idea she pushing the limit on topics and talking about this particular topic that's relevant in the story, that I get. So check out my review for this that I did, and you can see why I thought, okay, that was important. But for the most part, it wasn't enough to carry the story. That particular topic didn't carry the story for me, for where I'm like, this is great. This is not a great book for me. It just didn't do it for me. It shouldn't have been on the list. Just saying. And then romance. Now, Helen Wan do write these stories of characters that has autism, and autism in a way that is more of a social behavioral issue. And she do it in a romantic setting where, especially in this one, the Heart Principle, where you're talking about a character who doesn't know to say no, doesn't know how to defend herself when she needs to, or to be stern about what she wants. And so when it comes to matters of the heart and intimacy, it's even more complicated, because you're pleasing your partner but never pleasing yourself. So then you have this idea that is what is supposed to happen when you're in an intimate setting with someone. And then when a situation happens where you are out of that and now you're into a potentially great setting with someone, and things are happening that you've never experienced, you are struggling with that realization that, is this real? This is it? Is this how things are supposed to be? And that's what you get with this. These two characters was amazing. I love them together. I love how the author was responsible, talking about a story in terms of family, and how not only are she's experiencing this difficulty with intimacy, but with our family. Saying no to our family, controlling her life, her destiny, and how your family sometimes don't want to accept that you have an issue. And in this case, she's just realizing this as an adult, that she has a form of autism. And just imagine just realizing it and then being able to deal with it and think of yourself in a way that you never think of before, and knowing that, okay, that what I'm dealing with, what I'm experiencing for all these years is because of this. Having that answer, searching for things, and then now you have an answer and you can deal with it, you can use it to become better, and then you don't get that support. This book had me want to punch these family members out and I was not happy about it. So with that said, I would say this is such a good one. I love the slow burn. I love the intimacy when it did happen, how it happened. And it's just, oh, she did amazing with this. I love this. And then we have an epic historical fiction, Great Circle. This is on the Booker. Definitely a contender for the win. I would say I love historical fiction. Can I talk? I love historical fiction that has a good story as well as give you historical content that is facts and also enhance the storyline. And this you have, it is about aviation. It is about women who wanted to fly. And it started with a young woman who, she is a twin and she has a twin brother, and a father who chose them over everybody else on a ship that he was a captain of that had explosion and was going down. And he wasn't willing to have his children be taken care of by anyone else, so he got off the ship with his children. Needless to say, he was at fault for that. So there was that emotional disconnect that came after that. So they were raised by their uncle, and in her exploring her father's travels, her father's exploring the world, she wanted to do the same, but in a different way. She wanted to fly. She wanted to explore the world flying, and which was more complicated during that time period. We're talking about the early 1900s. You're a woman, what's your place, that kind of deal. And opportunity came to her, but it came with obligation and things that she had to do. But I love her character. I love how she wanted to live her life the way she wanted. She did not want to be confined by what is expected from women, of being married with children. And that was something that she knew head on, that she did not want to have kids. But of course that it doesn't work that way back then, and what she had to endure to prevent that from happening. I thought that was interesting in the story, make you think about other women during that period of time who had to deal with that. The people in her life, what was happening in time period as far as the war and the roles of women in the war, and the first women to do this, that, the other as far as aviation. I did a journal spread on Instagram on this in my vintage journal. It was fun reading about some of these other women who were the first, and a lot of them were during the 20s, and a lot of women had opportunity in the 20s. There's a lot of firsts in the 20s. The first to fly solo, the first to fly over a certain distance. There's all these women, and even the first black woman to fly was also in the 20s. So I love that. I love the character, and she lived a long life, but she lived it the way she wanted. And there were certain twists at the end that I really enjoyed, in how the author got you, because it just felt like it was going this way, and then she just pulled you back this way, and I was like, what? I was really enjoying this. It's a chunky book, but it's worth it, and there's a lot going on, so you definitely won't be bored. I really, really enjoyed this one, and it's definitely a contender for the win, definitely. And then we have Bewilderment. Now, this is a book that is everywhere now because Oprah done picked it up. I'm glad I got it before she put the stamp on it. And this was one of Obama's book lists. There's a lot of it. And I see why. It's a thought-provoking book. It's definitely a book that's thoughtful, but it's also a book that, you know, the time period we're in, I don't really want to read books like this because I don't want to really think outside the box right now, because I just want to live, you know, I just want to be in peace. I just don't want to think about the world in a different way. I just don't. And so reading this, I was just like, oh God, no, I don't want to read this. That's how I felt. But it was done in a way that has emotional issues connected. You know, you have a man who's a professor and he is into the science, and you know, he lost his wife and he's grieving with that, and he has a son, and his son has some emotional issues and very inquisitive and asks so many questions, and he's exploring life in a different way that we don't normally see. But he's learning to deal with that, and of course he lost his mother, so you're getting all of that. But then there's things that are coming up as the story goes, and hints of certain things, and you're just like, and then you're like, that kind of deal. That's how I was with this book. It's definitely a booker. I think this book, I'm gonna say it, I think a lot of the male people this is a gender book. I think more men who into thinking about the universe in a certain way, thinking about conspiracy theory and all these other stuff in a certain way, might enjoy this more. I think for me, I'm like, look here, I just want to read books that's just not gonna have me thinking about certain things. That's just me. So that's what I'm gonna say about this. That is my review. Okay, so you're not gonna get like that proper review that you want. You just go follow other people who have read this and have them give you Oprah. But I'm over this already. I am over this. But it's a good book. I would say read it. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna do. So anyway, there we have it. The 6th book that I was able to read. Was it just 6th book? Yes. Yeah, 6th book that I was able to read this month in September. And yeah, so join me for this October, because I'm doing a read along. Mama Day, Gloria Naylor, and then we have some other books, classics, and some other stuff. Check out my TBR video for October. Join me and in these books. And also, hopefully you guys also watch a previous video about my 2 year of daily journaling. Check that out as well. But yeah, you will see more of me in October, because I'm hoping to do more videos. Hope, because I have time off. It's my birthday month, October. Bye guys.